Admiral Kithvar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Death's Shadow. Through the wide windows he could see the endless darkness of space filled with stars. Behind him, 847 ships of the Valak Imperial fleet moved in perfect formation. Each ship was twice the size of anything the humans had ever built. Their metal hulls gleamed with energy shields that could stop any weapon known to the galaxy. Kithvar had commanded fleets for over 200 years. In that time, he had conquered 164 star systems. Every single one had fallen to his ships within days, sometimes hours. The pattern was always the same. His scouts would find a new world with life. The fleet would arrive. The natives would either surrender immediately or fight briefly before being crushed. Then the Valak Empire would grow larger, and Kithvar would add another victory to his record. Today would be victory number 165. Admiral called out his second-in-command, Commander Veltar. "We are receiving the final scout reports from the Sol system." Kithvar turned away from the window. His tall, thin body moved with practiced grace across the bridge. Like all Valak, his skin had a blue-gray color, and his large black eyes could see in almost complete darkness. Two small breathing slits on his neck opened and closed slowly as he breathed the ship's filtered air. "Show me," he said in his deep voice. The main screen came alive with images of a yellow star and 9 planets. The third planet from the star appeared blue and green, covered with water and land masses. White clouds swirled around it in beautiful patterns. "The natives call their world Earth," Veltar reported. "They call themselves humans. Our analysis shows they have barely reached their own moon. Their technology is extremely primitive. Chemical rockets, basic nuclear power, simple computers. They have not even left their own star system except for a few small bases on nearby planets." Kithvar nodded. This was exactly what he expected. Most species were still playing with fire and stone tools when the Valak found them. Even the more advanced ones rarely had real space travel. Humans seemed to be somewhere in the middle, not completely helpless but nowhere near advanced enough to challenge the Valak Empire. "Population?" he asked. "About 8 billion on the main planet. Another few million spread across bases on their moon and the 4th planet, which they call Mars. They appear to have some kind of basic military, but nothing that should concern us." Kithvar walked to his command chair and sat down. The chair was made from the bones of creatures from the first world he had conquered, over a century ago. It reminded him that all species eventually bowed before Valak power. "Weapons analysis?" he continued. Veltar touched controls on his console. New images appeared on the screen. Primitive kinetic weapons that fire metal projectiles, nuclear weapons, but very basic ones. Some energy weapons, but they are weak and short-range. Their largest warships are less than 1 kilometer long. Our smallest fighters are more heavily armed than their battle cruisers. The bridge crew laughed. Kithvar allowed himself a small smile. He had heard similar reports 164 times before. Each time the local species thought their weapons were impressive. Each time they learned how wrong they were when Valak energy beams tore through their ships like paper. "What about their defenses?" Kithvar asked. "Basic energy shields on some ships, physical armor on others. Nothing that our plasma cannons cannot penetrate easily. Admiral, our weapons specialists estimate that any human vessel will be destroyed by a single shot from our main batteries." Kithvar stood up and walked to the tactical display. It showed the Sol system in 3 dimensions, with the positions of all human forces marked in red. There were perhaps 300 human ships total, spread across their entire star system. Most were tiny patrol boats or cargo vessels. Even their largest military ships were smaller than Valak escort fighters. "Response time to our arrival?" he asked. "Based on their communication systems and ship speeds, it will take them at least 6 hours to gather their forces after we enter their system. By then, we can be at their home world." Kithvar nodded again. 6 hours was more than enough time to position his fleet and demand surrender. Most species gave up immediately when they saw the size of his force. Those that tried to fight usually lasted less than an hour. He activated the communication system that would send his voice to every ship in the fleet. Commanders of the Imperial Conquest Fleet. We approach Victory number 165. Intelligence reports indicate standard resistance levels. We will follow Protocol 7 for primitive species. Arrive, demand surrender, demonstrate superior firepower if necessary, occupy planet. Questions? No one spoke. Protocol 7 had been used successfully 127 times. It was designed for species that had basic space travel but were not truly advanced. The Velak would arrive in overwhelming numbers, show their weapons were unstoppable, and accept surrender. Usually the entire process took less than 1 day. Excellent, Kithvar continued. Jump to Sol system in 1 hour. Victory is already ours. The communication ended, and the bridge crew returned to their duties. Kithvar remained standing at the tactical display, studying the human positions. Something felt different about this conquest, though he could not say what. Perhaps it was because humans seemed slightly more advanced than usual, or perhaps it was because Earth looked so much like the Velak homeworld, with its blue oceans and green continents, but it did not matter. Different or not, humans would fall just like all the others. On the 4th planet Mars, Commander Dae-hyun Kim was finishing his duty shift at Mars Station Alpha when the alarms began to sound. The station was humanity's furthest military outpost, designed to watch for asteroids and other space hazards that might threaten Earth. It was not built to detect alien invasion fleets. Dae-hyun ran to the sensor station where Lieutenant Park was staring at his screens with wide eyes. "Sir, you need to see this," Park said. His voice shook slightly. Dae-hyun looked at the display and felt his blood turn cold. At the edge of the solar system, space itself seemed to be tearing open. Bright flashes of light appeared, and from each flash emerged a ship larger than anything humanity had ever built. "How many?" Dae-hyun asked quietly. "Still counting, sir. Over 800 so far. And they are all heading toward Earth." Dae-hyun grabbed the emergency communication device that would send a message directly to Earth Defense Command. His hands moved quickly over the controls as more and more alien ships appeared on the sensors. "This is Mars Station Alpha to Earth. Defense Command, we have contact. Unknown alien fleet entering solar system. Ship count over 800 and rising. They are moving directly toward Earth. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." The response came back immediately. "Mars Station Alpha, are you certain of your readings?" Dae-hyun looked at the display again. The alien ships were moving faster than anything humans had ever seen. They would reach Earth in less than 6 hours. Earth Defense Command readings confirmed. The ships are massive unknown technology and moving at incredible speed. Estimate arrival at Earth in 6 hours. A long pause. Then, "Mars Station Alpha, maintain observation and send all data to Earth immediately. May God help us all." Dae-hyun sat down heavily in his chair. He had trained for first contact with alien species, but never like this. Every simulation had assumed aliens would want to communicate, to learn about humanity, to share knowledge. No one had prepared for an invasion, fleet of this size. He looked out through the station's windows at the red surface of Mars below. Somewhere out there in the darkness, hundreds of alien warships were racing toward Earth. In a few hours, everything would change forever. Either humanity would find a way to survive, or it would join the long list of species that had fallen to these conquerors. Dae-hyun began typing his report to Earth, knowing it might be one of the last messages Mars Station Alpha would ever send. Major So-young-han sat in a hidden bunker beneath the Pacific Ocean, surrounded by banks of computers and communication equipment. Her team of 12 specialists worked around the clock, analyzing every detail of the alien fleet's behavior. As Earth's leading expert in psychological warfare, So-young had been given an unusual mission: make the aliens think humanity was weak and desperate. "Ma'am," called Lieutenant Yoon from his station, "the aliens are moving past Jupiter. They will reach Mars orbit in 18 hours. So-young nodded and turned to the tactical display. The Velak fleet had won the battle near Jupiter, destroying 127 human ships while losing only 3 of their own. To any observer, it looked like humanity was being crushed. But So-young saw something different in the data. They are being too careful, she said to her second-in-command, Captain Kim. Look at their formation. After losing 3 ships, they have spread out their fleet and increased the distance between vessels. They are taking our kinetic weapons seriously. Captain Kim studied the display. Is that good or bad for us? Very good. It means they can be taught. Species that never lose become predictable, but these aliens are already changing their tactics based on what we showed them at Jupiter. So Young walked to her personal computer and began typing. For the past week, she had been preparing a special kind of warfare that had nothing to do with guns or ships. She was going to attack the aliens' minds. Begin Phase 2, she ordered. Make them think we are panicking. Across the solar system, human ships began broadcasting messages on frequencies they knew the aliens could hear. The messages were designed to sound like desperate communications between frightened commanders. Earth Defense Command, this is the destroyer Busan. We cannot stop them. Their shields are too strong. Request permission to retreat to Earth orbit. All ships, this is Admiral Boram. Hold your positions. We must buy time for the evacuation of Earth's population. Mars base to any ship that can hear this. We are under attack. Alien forces have broken through our defenses. They are landing troops on the surface. We cannot hold them back. The messages were all fake, carefully written by So Young's team, to make the aliens believe that humanity was close to total collapse. But hidden within each false message were tiny data packets that would soon become very important. On the bridge of Death's Shadow, Admiral Kithvar listened to the human communications. With satisfaction, the messages confirmed what he had expected. The humans were breaking under pressure. Soon they would offer to surrender and Conquest 165 would be complete. Admiral, reported Commander Veltar, we are detecting increased human ship movements near Mars. It appears they are trying to evacuate their colonies. Let them run, Kithvar said. Fear will make the final surrender easier. But Captain Minho Song was not running. His ship, the stealth vessel Silent Arrow, was moving closer to the Velak fleet than any human had ever been. Minho was Earth's most experienced special operations commander, trained in missions that officially did not exist. His ship was unlike any other in the human fleet. It was designed to be invisible to most sensors, powered by an experimental engine that produced almost no heat signature. For the past 2 days, Silent Arrow had been shadowing the alien fleet, recording everything and looking for weaknesses. Captain, whispered his communications specialist Lieutenant Jae-won Yoon, I have broken into their communication network. The data packets from Major Han's fake messages worked perfectly. The alien computers think the packets are routine system updates. Minho smiled grimly. While the aliens thought humanity was panicking, human programmers had been writing computer viruses and hiding them in those false distress calls. Every time the Velak intercepted a human message, they unknowingly downloaded malicious code into their own systems. How long until the viruses activate? He asked. Major Han's orders are to wait until the fleet reaches Earth orbit. Maximum damage. When they are in position for the final battle, Minho nodded and turned to his pilot. Take us closer to their command ship. I want to plant some special surprises on their flagship. Silent Arrow moved through the darkness between the massive Velak vessels, invisible to their sensors but close enough to see the details of their hulls. Minho's team launched dozens of tiny devices that attached themselves to the alien ships like electronic parasites. Each device was no larger than a coin, but they would soon prove more dangerous than any weapon humanity had ever built. On Earth, the evacuation appeared to be going badly. Television news broadcasts showed long lines of people trying to leave major cities while government officials gave speeches about humanity's desperate situation. The broadcasts were transmitted on frequencies that the aliens could intercept, adding to their belief that Earth was in chaos. But Dr. Ji-hoon Kang was not evacuating. In his laboratory in Seoul, he was putting the finishing touches on humanity's most secret weapon. For months, his team had been working on a way to turn the aliens' own technology against them. The shield frequency analysis is complete, he reported to Admiral Boram over a secure channel. Every time their ships fire their energy weapons, their shields have to adjust to let the beam pass through. For exactly 0.3 seconds, there is a gap in their protection. Can we exploit that gap? Boram asked. Yes, but only with perfect timing, and we need the right kind of weapon. Dr. Kang held up a device that looked like an ordinary human energy pistol. This has been modified to fire a beam that reflects off their shield frequency. When they shoot at us, their own energy will bounce back and hit them. It was a clever idea, but it would require incredible precision and courage to use effectively. Meanwhile, Commander Daehyun Kim was still on Mars Station Alpha, but he was no longer just watching the aliens approach. His station had become the central coordination point for humanity's most ambitious deception. Daehyun to all hidden observation posts, he broadcast on a secure frequency. The alien fleet will pass your positions in 6 hours. Remember, appear, destroyed, but keep recording everything. We need their exact ship specifications for the final phase. Across the solar system, dozens of small human outposts prepared to fake their own destruction. When the Velak fleet arrived, these bases would create fake explosions and then go silent, making the aliens believe they had been wiped out. In reality, they would continue operating in secret, gathering intelligence on alien technology and tactics. As the hours passed, the deception grew more complex. Human ships retreated toward Earth in apparent panic, but they were actually moving into carefully planned positions. Evacuation ships fled from Mars and the Moon, but many of them carried weapons and soldiers instead of civilians. Even Earth's orbital stations appeared to be shutting down, while actually preparing for the biggest surprise in human history. Admiral Kaithvar watched it all from his command bridge and felt pleased with the progress. The humans were behaving exactly as expected. They had shown brief resistance at Jupiter, learned that they could not win, and were now falling back in disorder. Time to final surrender? He asked Commander Veltar. Based on previous conquests, approximately 6 hours after we reach Earth orbit, the humans will realize they cannot evacuate their entire population and will offer to give up rather than see their world destroyed. Kaithvar nodded. It was the same pattern he had seen 164 times before. A few hours of fear and desperation, then the inevitable message asking for terms of surrender. But Lieutenant Jae-won Yoon was already inside the Velak computer network, and he could see things that Admiral Kaithvar could not. The alien fleet's artificial intelligence systems were more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. But they had one critical weakness. They trusted their own technology completely. The viruses are in position, Jae-won reported to Captain Minho Song. Every major ship in their fleet is infected. When Major Han gives the activation command, their computers will turn against them. Minho looked through the window of Silent Arrow at the massive alien vessels surrounding them. In Iwam, a few hours those ships would be in Earth orbit, preparing to demand humanity's surrender. The aliens expected to face a broken, demoralized species ready to give up without a fight. Instead, they would discover that humans had spent every moment since first contact preparing for war. The apparent panic was a carefully planned deception. The retreating ships were moving into attack positions, and the computer viruses hidden in their own systems were about to teach the Velak Empire why 164 victories in a row might have been too many. The trap was set. Soon, it would spring. The Velak fleet arrived at Earth in perfect formation, their massive ships spreading across space like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. Admiral Kaithvar stood on his bridge, looking down at the blue and green planet that would soon belong to the Empire. Behind him, 844 warships waited for his command to begin the final assault. "Send the surrender demand," he ordered. The message went out on all frequencies. "Humans of Earth, your fleets are destroyed. Your colonies have fallen. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally, or we will begin destroying your cities. Choose wisely." On Earth, Admiral Boram Kim received the message in her command bunker. Around her, hundreds of officers waited for her response. The moment they had all been preparing for had finally arrived. "Major Han," she called out, "are your teams ready?" Major So Young Han looked up from her computers. "All psychological warfare units are in position, Admiral. The aliens think we are defeated, Captain Song." Captain Minho Song's voice came through the communication system from his hidden position near the alien fleet. "Viruses are loaded and ready to activate. The moment you give the order, their computers will become our weapons. Dr. Kang? Dr. Ji-hoon Kang held up his modified energy weapon. Shield reflection technology is online and distributed to all assault teams. We can turn their own firepower against them. Bo-ram took a deep breath. Colonel Choi, are your pilots ready? Colonel C. Sungmin Choi sat in the cockpit of his modified fighter, hidden inside what appeared to be a destroyed space station. Around him, 200 of Earth's best pilots waited in similar hiding places throughout the solar system. Ready, Admiral. We have been practicing the attack patterns for weeks. My pilots know exactly what to do. Bo-ram looked at the main display, which showed the positions of all Valak ships around Earth. The aliens had arranged themselves in a standard occupation formation, designed to control the planet and destroy any resistance. It was the same formation they had used successfully 164 times before. All human forces, she announced. This is Admiral Kim. The enemy expects us to surrender in fear. Instead, we will show them what happens when you threaten humanity's home. All units begin the attack. Operation Homecoming is now active. Across the solar system, humanity's real war began. Major So Young-han pressed a single button on her console, and every computer virus that Captain Min Ho-song had planted in the Valak fleet activated at the same moment. Within seconds, chaos erupted throughout the alien armada. On the bridge of Death's Shadow, Admiral Kaithvar watched in horror as his tactical displays began showing impossible readings. According to his computers, several of his ships were firing on each other. Weapons systems were activating without orders. Navigation computers were steering vessels into collision courses. What is happening? He demanded. Commander Veltar frantically worked at his control station. Admiral, our computer networks are under attack. Something is controlling our systems from the outside. Before Kithvar could respond, his own ship's weapons began firing randomly into space. The artificial intelligence that controlled Death's Shadow had been turned against its creators. From his position near the alien fleet, Captain Min Ho-song watched the viruses do their work. Phase 1 complete, he reported to Earth. Their computers are ours. Begin Phase 2, Admiral Bo-ram commanded. Hidden bases on the moon began launching what appeared to be simple metal asteroids toward the Valak fleet. The aliens' sensors detected the incoming objects, but their computers dismissed them as space debris. Exactly what the humans wanted them to think. But these were not ordinary asteroids. They were kinetic kill vehicles. Chunks of dense metal accelerated to incredible speeds by electromagnetic launchers. When they hit the alien ships, they struck with the force of nuclear weapons but were impossible to stop with energy shields. The first impacts caught the Valak completely by surprise. 3 massive warships exploded as the kinetic weapons tore through their hulls. The aliens tried to return fire, but their computer systems were still fighting against the human viruses. Phase 3. Bo-ram ordered. This was Dr. Ji-hoon Kang's moment. As the Valak ships finally began to overcome the computer viruses and return fire, their energy beams met an unexpected surprise. Human ships that had appeared to be retreating suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems. Each beam that the aliens fired was met by reflected energy from the human shield systems. The Valak found themselves shooting at enemies who threw their own firepower right back at them, amplified and redirected with deadly precision. Colonel Sungmin Choi led the fighter attack. His squadron emerged from hiding places throughout the Earth orbital area, moving in perfect coordination. The fighters were small and fast, designed to get close to the massive alien ships and attack their weak points. Remember your training, Choi told his pilots. Hit their weapon systems first, then their engines. Stay close to their hulls where their big guns cannot target you. The fighters swarmed over the Valak ships like angry insects. Their small size made them almost impossible for the alien weapons to hit, while their precise attacks disabled one enemy system after another. Sergeant Yoon Young Lim coordinated the battle from her position in Earth Defense Command. Her job was to track every human ship and make sure they all worked together perfectly. It was like conducting an orchestra, except the music was made of explosions and laser fire. Squadron 7, move to support the New York, she directed. Squadron 12, the alien command ship is trying to retreat. cut off their escape route. On Mars, Commander Dae-hyun Kim activated the final surprise. The bases that the aliens thought they had destroyed came back to life, revealing massive railguns that had been hidden beneath fake destruction. These weapons fired streams of metal projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The Valak fleet found themselves under attack from every direction at once. Kinetic weapons rained down from the moon. Energy beams reflected back from human ships. Fighters swarmed around their hulls. Hidden bases fired from Mars and the asteroid belt, and their own computers continued to malfunction, turning their weapons against each other. Admiral Kithvar realized that everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. They had not been retreating in panic. They had been moving into attack positions. They had not been destroyed at Jupiter. They had been learning how to fight more effectively. And they had not been sending desperate messages. They had been injecting viruses into his fleet's computer systems. How is this possible? He asked Commander Veltar. Veltar was working frantically to regain control of their systems. Admiral, the humans have been planning this from the moment we arrived. Every action they took was designed to make us underestimate them. Kithvar looked at the tactical display and felt something he had not experienced in over 2 centuries of conquest. Fear. His fleet of 844 ships was being torn apart by 300 human vessels and their hidden weapons. Worse, the humans were fighting with a coordination and creativity that he had never seen before. Order a retreat, he commanded. But there would be no retreat. Captain Minho Song had used the computer viruses to disable the navigation systems of most Velak ships. They were trapped in Earth orbit, forced to fight a battle they were losing badly. Dr. Ji-hoon Kang watched from his laboratory as his shield reflection technology continued to turn Valak energy weapons against their creators. Admiral, he reported, to Boram, the aliens are trying to modify their weapons to counter our defenses, but every change they make we can adapt to immediately. They cannot overcome technology they do not understand. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the Valak Empire's mighty conquest fleet was nothing but wreckage floating around Earth. Out of 844 ships, only Admiral Kithvar's flagship remained, and it was badly damaged and defenseless. Humanity had won its first interstellar war, but the real victory was not the destruction of the alien fleet. It was the lesson that Earth had taught the galaxy. Never underestimate a species that has survived by adapting to constant challenges. The Valak had conquered 164 worlds because they always fought the same way. Humans won because they learned to fight differently every single time. Admiral Boram Kim stood in the command center deep beneath the mountains of South Korea. The room buzzed with activity as hundreds of officers worked at computer terminals, tracking the approaching alien fleet. Giant screens on the walls showed the positions of every human ship in the solar system and the much larger red dots representing the invaders. Boram had been chosen to lead Earth's defense because she was the best strategic mind in the human military. She had spent 20 years studying space warfare, preparing for the day when humanity might face enemies from other worlds. But even in her worst nightmares, she had never imagined facing over 800 ships at once. Status report, she called out. Colonel Lee stepped forward with a tablet in his hands. All Earth defense forces are moving to intercept positions. We have managed to gather 247 ships so far. More are still arriving from the outer colonies. Boram nodded, but the numbers made her stomach tight with worry. 247 human ships against over 800 alien vessels, and the enemy ships were each much larger than anything humanity had built. What about the message we sent? She asked. No response yet, Admiral. We have been broadcasting on all frequencies for 2 hours. Standard first contact protocols, offers of peaceful discussion, requests for communication. They have ignored everything. Boram walked to the main tactical display. The alien fleet was moving through the solar system in perfect formation. Their ships were arranged in groups of exactly 50, with larger command vessels at the center of each group. It was clearly a military formation designed for conquest, not exploration. They are not here to talk, she said quietly. Captain Woojin Park, commander of the destroyer Soul's Pride, was leading the first line of human defense near Jupiter. His ship was one of humanity's newest and most advanced vessels, armed with plasma cannons and protected by energy shields. Against human enemies, it would be nearly unstoppable. Against the approaching aliens, he was not sure it would survive 5 minutes. "Captain," called his communications officer. "The alien fleet is sending a message." "Put it on screen," Wu Jin ordered. The main display filled with the image of a tall, blue-skinned creature with large black eyes. When it spoke, its voice was deep and cold, translated by the ship's computers. "Primitive species of the third planet. I am Admiral Kythvar of the Valak Imperial Fleet. Your system is now claimed by the Valak Empire. You will surrender immediately and prepare for occupation. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species. You have 1 hour to respond." The message ended. The bridge of Soul's Pride fell silent. "Sir?" asked the weapons. Officer Wu Jin looked around at his crew. These men and women had trained their entire lives to protect Earth. They had families back home, children who were counting on them to keep the aliens away. "Send a response," he said. "Tell them we reject their demands. Earth will defend itself." On the bridge of Death's Shadow, Admiral Kythvar received the human response with mild interest. He had heard similar words 164 times before. Species always claimed they would fight to the end, but when the shooting started, they usually surrendered. "Quickly, begin the demonstration," he ordered. The Valak fleet moved into attack formation. The humans had positioned their ships in a defensive line near the giant planet Jupiter, probably hoping to use the planet's gravity to their advantage. It was a reasonable strategy for primitives, but it would not help them against Valak technology. Kythvar selected 12 human ships for the demonstration. They were small patrol vessels, probably crewed by 20 or 30 beings each. Destroying them would show the humans what they faced without wasting too much ammunition. "Fire," he commanded. 12 beams of blue energy shot out from the Valak fleet. Each beam was hot enough to melt metal instantly and powerful enough to punch through any known armor. The human ships exploded in bright flashes of light, their crews killed in seconds. But something unexpected happened. As each human ship died, it sent out a burst of radio signals. The signals were directed back toward Earth and the other human ships, carrying detailed information about the Valak weapons, their energy signatures, beam patterns, power levels, and recharge times. Kythvar frowned. Most species simply died when his fleet attacked them. They did not think to gather intelligence while their ships were being destroyed. "Admiral," reported Commander Veltar, "the humans are repositioning their fleet. They are spreading out into smaller groups and moving to different positions." On the display, Kythvar watched the human ships break their defensive line and scatter throughout the area around Jupiter. Some moved behind the planet's moons. Others positioned themselves near the swirling clouds of the gas giant's atmosphere. "Standard, evasive patterns," Kythvar said. "They hope to make targeting more difficult. It will not help them." But as the battle continued, the humans began to display unusual behavior. When Valak ships attacked, the human crews fought until their vessels were completely destroyed, never surrendering or trying to escape. Each dying ship transmitted more data about Valak weapons and tactics. Human ships began to work together in ways that Kythvar had never seen before, with some vessels deliberately sacrificing themselves to give others better attack positions. Dr. Hyejin Lee worked frantically in her laboratory beneath Seoul, analyzing every piece of data that came back from the battle near Jupiter. As Earth's chief expert on alien technology, she was trying to find weaknesses in the enemy weapons and ships. "The aliens use directed energy weapons," she reported to Admiral Boram over the communication link. "Extremely powerful, but they have fixed recharge times, approximately 12 seconds between shots for their main guns, 3 seconds for smaller weapons." "What about their shields?" Boram asked. "Energy-based, similar to our own, but much stronger. However, they seem to be designed primarily to stop energy weapons. Physical projectiles might have a better chance of penetrating." Boram considered this information. Humanity's newest ships carried both energy weapons and old-fashioned kinetic guns that fired solid metal slugs at high speed. The kinetic weapons were considered backup systems, useful only if the main guns failed. "Tell all ships to focus on kinetic weapons," she ordered, "and keep gathering data on everything the aliens do." Back near Jupiter, Captain Wu Jin received the new orders just as 3 Valak ships moved to attack his destroyer. His weapons officer looked at him with surprise. "Kinetic weapons only, sir. Against those massive ships?" "You heard the Admiral," Wu Jin replied. "Load armor-piercing rounds and target their weapon systems." Soul's Pride fired a stream of metal, slugs at the nearest Valak ship. To everyone's surprise, several rounds punched through the alien shields and struck the hull. The damage was small, but it proved that the aliens were not invincible. The Valak ship responded by firing its main energy cannon. The beam struck Soul's Pride and tore through its armor, killing half the crew instantly. But as the ship died, Wu Jin managed to send one final message. "All human ships' kinetic weapons can penetrate their shields. Repeat, kinetic weapons are effective. Keep fighting." Admiral Kithvar watched the destruction of another human ship, but he was beginning to feel uneasy. The humans were not behaving like the other 164 species he had conquered. They were learning from each battle, adapting their tactics, and sharing information even as they died. Most disturbing of all, they showed no fear. Human crews fought with determination that bordered on madness, never giving up even when their ships were crippled and burning. "Admiral," Veltar reported, "human ships are now focusing their fire on our weapon systems. They are using only kinetic projectiles. Our shields are not as effective against solid rounds." Kithvar studied the tactical display. The human fleet had lost over 60 ships, but the remaining vessels were fighting more effectively than when the battle began. They had learned to avoid his energy weapons and concentrate their attacks on Valak weak points. "Increase firepower," he ordered. "Destroy them all quickly before they can adapt further." But even as more human ships died, Kithvar realized he had made a mistake. He had expected the humans to surrender after the demonstration, like every other species. Instead, they had used his demonstration to learn about his weapons and tactics. For the first time in 164 conquests, Admiral Kithvar began to wonder if victory was as certain as he had always believed. The battle near Jupiter continued, with human ships dying one by one but taking valuable intelligence with them back to Earth. Each loss taught humanity something new about their enemy, while the aliens learned only that humans were more stubborn than expected. Neither side yet realized that this first skirmish was just the beginning of a war that would change both species forever. Admiral Kithvar sat alone on the bridge of his crippled flagship, surrounded by sparking consoles and the smell of burning metal. Through the cracked windows, he could see the wreckage of his once mighty fleet floating in Earth's orbit. 844 ships had arrived to conquer humanity. Only one remained, and it was barely functioning. The humans had done the impossible. Not only had they survived the assault of the Valak Imperial fleet, they had destroyed it completely. In over 200 years of conquest, Kithvar had never even imagined such a defeat was possible. A communication signal came through the damaged speakers. The voice belonged to a human female, speaking in calm, measured tones. "Admiral Kithvar of the Valak Empire. This is General Hyun-Woo Kim of the Terran Defense Forces. We are prepared to accept your surrender." Kithvar closed his large black eyes and tried to understand how everything had gone so wrong. His scouts had reported that humans were primitive, barely capable of space travel. His intelligence officers had confirmed that human weapons were weak and their defenses inadequate. His tactical computers had predicted total victory within hours. All of it had been lies. Not intentional deception by his own people, but fundamental misunderstanding of what humanity truly was. "I surrender," he said quietly into the communication device. General Hyun-Woo Kim stood on the bridge of the human battleship Soul Guardian, looking at the damaged alien vessel on his main screen. As Admiral Bo-Ram Kim's younger brother, he had been given command of the post-battle operations. His job was to secure the alien survivors and begin negotiations with their empire. "Sir," reported Captain Aram Seo, "we are detecting 43 life signs aboard the alien flagship. The rest of their fleet shows no survivors." Hyun-Woo nodded grimly. The battle had been decisive. But it had also been brutal. Nearly 800 alien ships destroyed with over 500,000 beings dead. It was not something he took pleasure in, but humanity had been defending its very existence. "Open a channel to the alien ship," he ordered. Admiral Kythvar's image appeared on the screen. The Valak commander looked exhausted and defeated, his blue-gray skin pale and his breathing unsteady. "Admiral," Hyunwoo said, "we will send medical teams to help your wounded. But first I need you to explain something to me. Why did your empire attack Earth without any attempt at peaceful contact?" Kythvar was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of terrible realization. "Because we have conquered 164 worlds before yours. In every case, the native species was too primitive to resist our technology. We assumed you would be the same. And now I understand that we were wrong about everything. Your species is not primitive. You are something far more dangerous. You are adaptable. We have grown weak through too many easy victories. You have grown strong through constant challenges. Doctor." Young-Soo Park was analyzing the wreckage of the Valak fleet from his laboratory on Earth. As humanity's leading expert on alien technology, his job was to understand how such an advanced species could be defeated by human weapons that were supposedly inferior. "The answer is not in their technology," he reported to General Kim. "Their ships were indeed more advanced than ours. Their weapons were more powerful, their shields stronger, their computers faster, but they had one critical weakness." "Which was?" Kim asked. "They had stopped learning. For over 3,000 years they used the same tactics against every enemy. The same ship formations, the same battle plans, the same assumptions about how space combat should work. They were like a master chess player who had forgotten that the rules of the game could change." On Earth, the celebration was beginning. Cities around the world erupted in joy as news of the victory spread. Humanity had faced its greatest test and emerged victorious. But Admiral Boram Kim was not celebrating yet. She stood in her command bunker reviewing the final battle reports with Major So Young Han and the other officers who had planned the defense. "What are our losses?" she asked. Major Han consulted her tablet. 89 ships destroyed, over 12,000 personnel killed or wounded. Mars Station Alpha is severely damaged. 3 lunar bases will require complete rebuilding. The numbers were sobering. Victory had come at a high price, and Boram felt the weight of every life lost under her command. "Ma'am," Captain Min Ho Song called from his communication station. "We are receiving long-range signals from the direction of Valak space. Multiple ships approaching at high speed." The celebration stopped. Had the Valak Empire sent another fleet? But the signals carried a surprising message. The approaching ships belonged to dozens of different species, all of them former Valak colonies that had learned about Earth's victory. They were coming not to attack, but to thank humanity for breaking the empire that had oppressed them for millennia. The first ship to arrive carried ambassadors from the Kithara, a species that had been conquered by the Valak over 1,000 years earlier. Their leader, an insect-like being named Ziktar, spoke through a translation device. "Humans of Earth," the creature said, "you have done what we thought impossible. The Valak Empire claimed to be unstoppable, but you have proven that any tyrant can fall if opposed by those willing to fight creatively." Over the following weeks, dozens of species sent representatives to Earth. Each had their own story of Valak conquest, and each wanted to learn from humanity's victory. But more importantly, they wanted to form an alliance based on mutual defense rather than imperial conquest. Admiral Kythvar, now a prisoner of war being held in a comfortable facility on Earth's moon, was interviewed by Dr. Young-Soo Park. The human scientist wanted to understand the Valak perspective on what had happened. "Your empire conquered 164 worlds," Park said. "How did you choose which species to attack?" "We looked for worlds with intelligent life that had not yet achieved faster-than-light travel," Kythvar replied. "Species that could not threaten us or call for help from allies. But you attacked us anyway, even though we met those criteria." Kythvar nodded slowly. "That was our mistake. We assumed that any species without interstellar capability must be primitive. We never considered that a species might be advanced in ways that our sensors could not detect. What ways? Creativity, adaptability, the willingness to sacrifice for others, the ability to learn from failure and turn weakness into strength. These are not technologies that can be measured by scanners, but they are more powerful than any weapon we possessed. General Hyunwoo Kim was preparing the message that would be sent to the Velak homeworld and their remaining colonies. It would be humanity's first official communication with an interstellar empire, and the words would be remembered for generations. People of the Velak Empire, the message began, Earth offers you peace. We do not seek revenge for your attack on our world. We understand that your empire was built on the assumption that conquest was the natural order of the universe. Today, we invite you to consider a different path. Humanity extends an offer of friendship to all Velak who are willing to abandon the ways of empire and join a new community of equals. We have much to learn from your advanced technology, and perhaps we have some things to teach you about adaptation and cooperation. But understand this clearly. Earth will never again be threatened by those who mistake kindness for weakness. We have shown that human ingenuity can overcome any advantage that arrogance provides. Any future aggression against humanity or our allies will be met with the same creative destruction that claimed your conquest fleet. The choice is yours. Join us in building a better galaxy, or continue on the path that has already cost you so much. Choose wisely. The message was sent toward Velak space, carrying humanity's first words to the galaxy beyond Earth. It would take months to reach its destination, and months more for a reply to come back. But on Earth, the celebration continued. Humanity had passed its greatest test and earned its place among the stars. The species that had once been confined to a single world was now ready to explore the galaxy as equals, not conquerors. Admiral Kithvar, watching Earth from his prison window, finally understood the lesson that 164 victories had failed to teach him. True strength did not come from having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. It came from never stopping to learn, never failing to adapt, and never giving up when the survival of everything you loved was at stake. Humanity had those qualities in abundance. That was why, despite being outgunned and outnumbered, they had emerged victorious from the greatest battle in their history. And that was why the galaxy would never be the same.